Good morning, Year 8, and welcome to this week's assembly. So this week I wanted to talk about motivation. Now, it being the last week of the half term, a lot of you have kind of through sending work or emails have been kind of struggling a little bit with motivation this week. So I wanted to talk about maybe some things to help you stay motivated over the last week, and definitely make sure that you're setting yourself up for next week, which is half term week, and sorting that out. Now, it's kind of came also about with Boris Johnson's speech last week, and whilst I was watching that, my daughter was very excited at the fact that she might be going back to school, but I did kind of feel for you guys in the fact that actually it may not be until later in the year that you are actually back with us. And actually SBH, being the kind and loving community that it is, I think that's actually quite difficult for Year 8 to get their heads around. Some of you may be rejoicing a little bit in the fact that you might not be back to school quite so soon, but I know for a lot of you that's going to be really, really difficult. And in terms of keeping motivated, that's a really, really hard thing to kind of grapple with in your mind. So I've been talking to lots of teachers this week and thinking about the things that kind of motivate us to keep going. So there are a couple of things, and I want you to see if you can link them all together by the end of my assembly. So the things I have are a chameleon. I don't know whether you can see that very well. I also have a pink grapefruit, bit random. I have a letter written on some beautiful unicorn paper with stickers, and then I also have a unicorn book, dancer book. Okay, and I want you to think about how those link together. So I'll give you a little bit of time just to have a think about that. Okay, so I'm going to go through how all these things link. Now, with my chameleon, there is a school of thought, and particularly I've done this in a couple of kind of teacher training sessions, that actually to stay motivated, sometimes it's really, really good to get that bit of work done that you don't want to do. So it's called eating the frog, but in my house I didn't have a toy frog or anything along those lines. So I'm going to be talking about eating the chameleon, okay? So basically what that means is actually getting the work done that you don't want to do first. So that idea of if you were to eat a frog or a chameleon, you wouldn't really want to do it, but you want to kind of get it done and out the way, okay? So for me, sometimes that's things like housework. I'm not a massive fan of that. I really find maths a real challenge. So often when I have to do work that's really quite difficult, I will start with that first. So then that gives you that sense of kind of accomplishment of having completed that by the end of the day. So that's motivation tip number one. Do the thing that is your least favorite thing kind of first, and eat your frog or chameleon, okay? The next thing I wanted to kind of link together was my pink grapefruit. Now, this kind of doubles up as two kind of things, really. So I wish we kind of had smell-o-vision, because this smells absolutely amazing. I've just literally cut that in half, and just making sure that you're thinking about the environment that you're in, the environment that you live in, and thinking about those kind of motivational smells. Citrus fruits are really, really good to kind of smell, and this kind of reminds me of a space in school, like when you go into inclusion and you have that wonderful kind of lavendery smell as you go into inclusion, and that always strikes me first when I go into a space like that, of how calming that smell is and how loving and inclusive that kind of smell is. So kind of think about that, and also reminding you with things like your pink grapefruit to make sure you're fueling your body with the right things as well. I'm really, really fortunate in the fact that I get like a fruit and veggie box sent to me each week from my local greengrocers, and that keeps us really motivated and kind of healthy as well. So the next thing was the kind of letter. So this actually was a letter that was sent to my daughter by her best friend in the post, and when she received it the other day, she was very, very excited that she'd, one, received some post from a friend, but two, that communication with one another, and actually that was a great motivator for her. And then alongside that came today's book as well. So one of her other friends from school sent her this book, and she's one of her ballet friends, so really, really kind of apt book for them to send to them. But I wondered whether also people could kind of start doing that, maybe over the half-term break, just sending each other a letter in kind of physical form, of sending you know, a little message, just a little pick me up, because actually that can be hugely motivating. Receiving something in the post is really nice anyway, and I'm definitely someone who likes opening a good old parcel, but also having that physical communication, and there will be some communication coming from SPH in that sort of way in the coming days, but just thinking about those things to stay motivated. I also spoke to Team English and some of the other, you know, members of staff in SPH, and definitely making sure you're keeping a routine, doing the exercise, which I know we've talked about in previous assemblies, and just making sure that you're communicating with one another, whether that's on WhatsApp or on Teams. And please do make sure that you are accessing Teams each week. So if you're watching this, you certainly will have been, and just making sure that you're staying motivated. And lastly, make sure you're trying to do the things that you love. So at the weekend, on Saturday, it was really early, so the tide was up about 7:30. I actually went out for a paddleboard, which was really, really lovely. Getting out there, obviously socially distancing, now that water sports are kind of back on and allowed by the government, it was really, really nice to kind of get out there, and a massive motivator for me to make sure that I got out in the open air and filled my lungs with lots of beautiful sea air, and got, you know, out on the water was a massive motivator. Obviously, for those of you who have different circumstances, make sure you're getting outside. I'm sat in my garden right now, so make sure you get that kind of exercise, which is now not as restricted as it was, so please make sure that you are staying motivated and getting outside. Anyway, have a great week, have a great half term, and I will see you the other side.